The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechBytes is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Well, this is a very special post-New Year's edition of TechBytes with the IFBTA. And, it's great to kick off the year with lots of industry things going on. And one of the first things that's going to be going on is WiRL, which is Women in Restaurant Leadership. And I am joined today in a conversation with Satyne Doner and also Danny Klein. And both are with QSR FSR. Danny is the editorial director of Food, Retail, and Hospitality. And Satyne is the senior editor of Women in Restaurant Leadership WiRL. So welcome to TechBytes.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. I am glad to be joined by Satyne this time, which is a nice change from the past.
Well, now you won't have to do anything. But here's the deal.
That is true.
So Satyne, this is what, the third year? This will be the third?
Yeah.
Third. So maybe between the two of you can just sort of talk about why WiRL exists, how did it come about, and let's just start there and make sure everybody knows what it is, where it is, and when it is.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pass the baton to Danny because at the time, the inception of WiRL, I was still very much an intern. I remember that first year being at not just the first WiRL, but the first QSR Evolution conference. And I was just a deer in headlights, just taking it all in. So I was very much still a newbie at this when it was born. So Danny, take the lead here.
Well, wait, let me just point this out, that if you started as an intern, but now you really have the lead here, you must have been a really good intern.
I like to say I hold that title, the number one QSR FSR intern.
She was definitely the longest tenured intern for sure.
Right.
So, which I think wouldn't happen if she wasn't also the best intern, but longer story for another day. So I think I've told this on this podcast before, so I will give you the quickened version, but I think I like to tell people that WiRL was kind of bullied into existence, but I mean that in the best way possible, which was we had a networking cocktail hour at our other conference, QSR Evolution in Atlanta. And it really was originally incepted off of a panel I was doing on women in leadership that I don't really have any recollection of why I decided that should be on the agenda, only that I did, and it got a lot of interest, and I expanded it into a cocktail hour. And so the cocktail hour, unfortunately, because of the hotel at the time, was not that large. I didn't have capacity in the room. We had to get this one room off the side for 155 people, and people kept trying to bring their friends. And so we ran into this situation where people were going, "You're not letting me into the, the women in restaurant."
I tried to get in.
Yeah, right. And we were kicking people out. We didn't have much of a choice. And and there was a lot of like, well, why is this person here? And why can't I come in here? Why can't my friend come here? Where's the programming? There was a lot of questions of, on the surface of saying like, oh, wow, we didn't do this correctly. But what I really realized in that was actually that we had kind of tapped a nerve of something that we weren't doing that I guess there was room to do more of. So when we were having planning for the following year, I told our CEO at the time, I would like to expand this women in restaurant leadership networking thing that we tried to do. Let's go do it correctly. And so we launched the conference in 5 months. We brought in a lot of the women who told me what we were doing incorrectly and put them on the board. They helped form the agenda. It led to, more content, and it led to a lot of things in the structure that was really directed by those involved. And then lo and behold, there was year one of WiRL in Nashville, and Satyne was an intern taking it in. And so it was successful enough to warrant then creating year two, bringing Satyne on full time, which was really the beginning of our larger media platform for WiRL into the social media webinars. so on and so forth, that she now directs, thankfully, instead of myself. And year 2 of the conference was great. Also in Nashville, 500 people instead of 300. And we are now, as we sit here recording on January 5th, we are 1 month and 20 something days from year 3 in Charleston in February. So that is kind of the quick story of how we got here.
It's at Charleston, February, and the dates are, and the place is, besides Charleston.
Yeah, so it's February 24th through the 27th at the Charleston Marriott.
And mostly the 25th and 6th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the content itself is the 26th.
But things always start early, because I'm guessing that there's a whole program around this that probably includes education and includes, a lot of conversation, networking, So why don't we talk about, this year coming up, how would you break down the overall program? Into what kind of buckets would you break it down?
Yeah, absolutely. This year is really exciting for me. I don't know if Danny and I knew in year 1 how life-changing this would be, not just for him and I, but for everyone that's been able to touch this platform, whether it's just the community or the board members. So going into year 3, we knew that the appetite for elevating, educating, and empowering women in this industry is larger than ever. And there's so many different reasons for that. We wanted to make something bigger and better than ever. So February 24th, we've got some little activations in the evening. February 25th is really where it starts to get crazy. So for the first time, we're introducing a pre-conference workshop in partnership with a Charleston local brand, Vicious Biscuit and Bojangles.
Oh, yeah.
So these two brands were coming together.
I had Vicious Biscuit, by the way, on this podcast.
Yeah, and I'm hoping they bring their biscuits, by the way. I hope, fingers crossed.
They need to.
So we've got a pre-conference workshop that day. We've got some of our signature pre-conference activities. And then that night is something really special. Last year, we did a Barbie party, and it was just crazy. I mean, 500 women all in Barbie costumes, networking with each other. And we just found that it created this really empowering environment and a really great kickoff to the programming the next morning. This year, we're also doing it in partnership with Olo. It's a Gatsby Gala. So it's 1920s flapper themed. Danny, bring out your fringe. And then on the 26th, I mean, it's broken down the same as last year. We've got 9 panels. We have an opening keynote. We also added a closing keynote this year. And we have about, I want to say 70 speakers.
It's a lot of sessions.
It's a lot of sessions, a lot of speakers, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of knowledge all crammed into.
How many attendees are you expecting to get?
We don't really know. Probably 500-ish. We kind of didn't set it up to be much larger than that. The actual space is not really that big, because we don't want it to be too big, because it would take away from some of the kind of intimate networking. So that, the Barbie party as an example, that was really fun with that amount of women. But if there was 1,000 people in that hallway, we might have been walking
what
away
did you
going,
wear to that?
Me? Well, I had a Ken box.
Photo here.
Yeah, I bought a big Ken box on Amazon that like you could step into. And so after I wore it for 30 minutes, because it was 200 degrees inside there, I just put it next to the photo booth station that we had. We had about 25-ish guys attend. So, people were putting the Ken box on. Women were putting it on also, of course. So, but when you get it to be too large, if you have 1,000 people in this environment, I think it makes it a little bit difficult as an attendee to become a part of that community like we're trying to drive. So we find 500 to be, at least for now, kind of the aim target of what we think this feels good at. Mm-hmm. Could it be larger? Probably. But then you'd be stepping into a 900 person Barbie party, right. And it's just terrified.
It can feel really disorienting. Evolution is huge in its own right. But if I was a first timer, and this is something actually, WiRL has a presence at Evolution. And anytime we get like a first timer or someone that's nervous, they don't know what to do, maybe it's their first conference, we try to be that welcoming home for people and kind of create that community, that larger family feeling. And approachability is really important to us. So I think we want to keep that sense of intimacy that made WiRL so special in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we, first of all, Satine, you threw out an awful lot of different things that occur in a very short period of
Yeah, I
time.
didn't even
I
cover
think
all.
I heard 70 sessions. I heard opening keynote, closing keynote. We definitely have this, party that Olo's involved in. So maybe we break it down a little bit. So can we, start with, what they should expect in the opening and closing keynotes?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the 26th, we're starting off with an opening keynote with Tabassum Zalotrwala. She's the SVP of Global Restaurant Design and US Chief Development Officer at McDonald's. She's also QSR's February cover star. She's really just an incredible human being. She is incredibly artistic. She's worked her way up through some iconic brands, and I'm really excited to sit down with her and have her take us through her career journey, because I think WiRL is very conducive to sharing that information. How I got here, here's how you can get here, and advice. And then our closing keynote at the end of the day on the 26th is with Julie Fussner. She's the first female chief executive officer and the very first previous CMO of Culver's. She's an incredible human being as well. And I'm so excited to learn more about their journeys and have them shine a beacon of inspiration to our attendees there, no matter what their role or title is.
Yeah, and I'll just say from like a personal note, as an organization, the biggest thing that's changed in this event over the years is the actual content. Year one, I did workshop style content because someone told me that was going to be a good idea, and the truth was it wasn't. I mean, it worked out okay, but it wasn't. It needed to be elevated because what we were doing is that we were having like a session. We gave everybody a color on their badge, and if you were red, you went into one room. If you're blue, you went into the other, and then they flipped. And so these workshops were happening twice, which was a lot for the speakers, but then also no one was following the circle on their on their badges. And what I realized going into year two is I wanted this to get somewhere in between like a regular conference with panel style content, but then also make sure that these are collaborative style conversations. So we moved more in the direction of having a lot of speakers. So like in year one, we had, maybe like 7 speakers if you really want to, whatever it was. Right. And then now, as she said, we had 70. And the fact that McDonald's is one of them is a really crazy thing for me to even consider, because how far this has come in that period of time, that, the largest restaurant chain in the world wants to come keynote this is a pretty amazing deal to me, because it
It
isn't
also has a lot to do with the positioning of QSR and FSR in there as well, and your industry leadership in it, and then taking industry leadership to WiRL, in focusing on a very special area. I can see why people want to be a part of that.
Yeah, it means a lot to us that they are doing that. That's all, I guess, is what I'm trying to capture, because it does really put into perspective this journey in a 3-year period has taken us from this conference where we didn't know what we were doing, although we had an incredible keynote in year one with the 4 executive women at Whataburger, and really set the stage kind of for what was going to come after that. You always need to start somewhere,
Yeah.
because you
And
need to be able to show them in the future, right? And be like, here, look who did it last year. So
yeah.
we owe Whataburger a lot on that front.
And I mean, Shannon was absolutely incredible last year. I mean, not only did she
Yes.
sit there and she led the keynote, but she actually stayed through the whole conference, which I know sometimes is not
People come and they leave, right? And that really shows the value.
And she
Yeah.
stayed and she sat there with the audience, and it was just such an incredible sight to see. And really, just shout out to Shannon. And
Yeah,
we
that's
still
Shannon
get
from the Habit
emails.
Burger, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, Shannon Hennessy from the Habit Burger. I still get emails asking for me to intro to her. So,
Yeah, we've really made a great legacy of keynote speakers in a short period of time.
yeah.
They've been really incredible people. And then having two this year is
And
that was
many of your
yeah,
keynote
super cool.
speakers, some are emerging on the way up, and they're influencers, and some of your keynote speakers have made it, to the very top level that's there. And I think you have a very good balance if you take a look at the program of people really at all levels. But it's also about, how they can take things to the next step and how they can share. And um, why don't we do this? Let's just take a quick break and we'll come back because I'd like to drill down in a few areas, very specific ones, and make sure that people understand, what they can get out of it and what makes this different, I'll give you a few seconds during the break to think about that particular question since I just teed it up. But I'm pleased to have a TechBytes conversation with Danny Klein and Satyne Doner. And they are with WiRL and QSR FSR, and we'll be right back after this break.
With the rapid expansion of technology in the food and beverage industries, finding the right supplier can become overwhelming and complicated. To simplify this process, the IFBTA created Exchange. Exchange is a powerful search tool where users can easily narrow down their technology search and refine results by application type, geography served, department, and more. Browse resources and learn more about the industry's technology suppliers at exchange.ifbta.org. Now, back to the show.
So welcome back. And this is another TechBytes conversation on the IFBTA network here. And I have Satyne Doner and I have Danny Klein, both from QSR FSR. And we're talking about WiRL, Women in Restaurant Leadership, which is going to be held in Charleston at the Marriott in February the 25th to the 27th, although there may be some things that start a little bit earlier in there. And we spent the first half really talking about what got started, why the need was there. And we were talking about keynotes and legacy keynotes and people who've been there, but also some of the things coming up. Now, we've got 70 sessions going on. So how do you choose the topics that you're going to discuss? Like, how do you make sure it's pertinent, for bringing all these people together?
So
Yeah.
it's not it's 70
We've
people,
got
not
70
sessions.
speakers over,
That would be a crazy thing.
70 sessions. We're going to need to take a whole month of WiRL.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But
70 speakers. Okay, so you got a lot of speakers to corral there. So
yeah, we've got a lot of speakers to corral, a lot of different panels. The way it's set up on the 26th, we've got our opening keynote, and then we do them in blocks of 3 panel sessions times 3. So attendees will have the option to choose which panel they want to go to, which knowing me, if I'm anything like the attendees, I wish I could be in all 3 places at once. But we really try to nail down something that speaks to all women and all members of the community. So, for example, we've got a financial acumen panel. We have a marketing panel. This year, we've also dialed in on wellness, topics about owning your authority, how to advance, and how to advocate for yourself. Of course, we've got panels on motherhood and culture and just all these different things that a woman in restaurant leadership might connect to. And when we think about curating panels, whether it's the topic itself or the speakers, I do rely on our amazing and incredible advisory board. Our current advisory board has almost 40, I think 38 or 39 women from all over the industry.
I think you have the IFBTA's Lauren Selman in there too.
She is one of our founding members, so I rely on the board.
And the speaker?
Yes, absolutely. And so between the board and what we hear from the community, we try to do them justice through all of these different panels and speakers.
Yeah, one of the most important things in the content, as I was talking on the last one about kind of what I learned in year one of the crazier things I did with this process out of the gate was make this gigantic board, which anyone who's ever been on a board or tried to direct a board, putting 40 people on there is I mean, that's a choice. And it's not the easiest thing. And honestly, one of the reasons bringing Satyne on full time was so essential was because it's so many great opinions and people to tap for insight and ideas that I couldn't wrangle that many folks and do the rest of my job at times. So we have made this gigantic board in year one, partly to show the legitimacy and so that people who are coming into the process would say, oh, wow, look at this amazing group of 40 women that you have that are coming to the event that are involved in the decision making. And now it's over time really turned into the kind of engine of the content. So unlike a lot of conferences in our industry, which right or wrong, this is just reality, or sort of decided what I would like to say in reverse process from us, their content that is created by the supplier community, which is great, not knocking that. But our case, it goes in reverse where we have content created by the board that then gets sponsored. So everything.
Well, so I found that interesting, by the way. That's an interesting perspective and a way of saying that, because I also took a look at your sponsors, and you have a very solid group of sponsors. But as you've pointed out, what you're saying is that your advisory board leads with content, and then the sponsors support that content rather than having sponsor content leading, and putting it on there.
Right. That's the vision of both of our conferences, but especially this one, where the idea is that our sponsors and partners are supporting our content, not developing it, which again, I see that in other conferences. I understand. It's cool. No issue there. But we wanted our content to really be sort of foundational to what happens afterwards. So, Satyne will have these meetings with 38 board members and say, what is essential to you all to talk about? And that's how the motherhood, what we called Restaurant Moms on the Go, that became a webinar. There was a panel last year that's coming back this year. And it really allows us to touch into very important topics that cross a lot of different things, from financial, acumen to some of these more empowerment type topics.
But if I might point out one observation that I also see in this, if you take a look at your sponsor and your sponsor representatives, and you take a look at your advisory board is not just people who are on the operator side of restaurant leadership, but it's also on the supplier side. Yep. And it really takes both, to make things happen, in this industry. So your content is probably your content is just as applicable to those who supply or partner in the industry as those who operate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. We agree.
Yeah, we agree. If you're a woman in this industry, chances are, you have experience in motherhood and advocating for yourself. I think last year we had a women in tech panel, and it was really funny. You had a bunch of what you would think at first glance competitors, but they were all willing to get on this panel and talk about their journeys in tech because, well, you're a woman in tech.
I don't know that there's so much of competitor, now you're hitting in my space, right? But, I don't think that there's so much competition, so much in tech anyway, because even when companies offer one thing or another, they also have to partner because there's no single solution out there. And I think that actually is also why operators and suppliers, have to come together and partner. And they both, contribute to the operation. It's not really one or the other. And the user experience, that the customer gets in there. Do you have because you're promoting women's leadership in restaurants, do you also focus on how you connect with the guest on this?
As in, like, the customer?
Yes, the customer base, because it's not just about the leadership, but it's also about the services and dealing with customer base. Is that a focus?
Yeah. So here's a fascinating thing about that tech panel that Satyne brought up. It was like a superstar lineup of speakers that were. I think we had 7 speakers on that panel, and they were just like pillars of the restaurant tech community. But in terms of like panels that I went to at that conference, it had the fewest people in the audience. And the reason for that, as we commented during the actual panel, was there should be more women in technology. So it's like you had this conference and people went where their sort of career positions took them. And so the tech panel was full of really, really dedicated people who were super interested, but they were a smaller group than some of the other panels. So to your point on the guest, what's interesting about this conference is that marketing titles are probably 60 to 65% of the operator titles who come. So it's almost kind of like WiRL is a marketing executive conference to a certain degree, even though it's not. And so we put panels on things like, loyalty and reaching the guest customer. A lot of like, how do you actually make your marketing, like how do you show your boss that it's working? That was a big one last year, of like what we call like lasting value and being able to
Advertising
illustrate.
QSR, FSR, and you don't have to worry about it.
Right, exactly. So like, we had a CMO panel last year where it was really about like, here's how I show that I'm getting results. But that said, like there's so much in that journey that happens at this conference because of the fact that it's so marketing heavy. Hopefully that answered your questions.
Yeah, I mean, it really takes a look at it, but I do, take also the observation of the types of titles because, in past days, people might have thought you'd be heavy on HR titles.
Mm.
You're not.
We get a lot of those too.
You do. There are other conferences and things that certainly, focus on some of those things. So as you're taking a look at this, I think you pointed out at the beginning, there's a bunch of different conferences and focus areas, on women's leadership in the hospitality restaurant industry. So what do you consider to be your differentiation points? If somebody, there's lots of conferences out there. So how do you consider the differentiation point that really makes this much different?
I'll let Satyne start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, to put it simply, I don't think that there is any other conference community space that gives you this unfiltered, real, raw, authentic access to industry veterans who want to share knowledge, best practices, inspiration, tips, as as much as this group of speakers do. I mean, they are truly dedicated to the world mission of elevation, education, and empower. And just like Shannon Hennessy, not just coming there to say a couple things on a stage and leave, they are there, they are in the trenches, they want to talk to you, they want to share best practices, they want to be a part of this movement.
Yeah, I think the best way that I would describe it is I go to other events now, and people who meet at this conference flock together. And it tells me something about what we're doing here. And even if you come to the conference, you'll see sort of the vendor to operator relationship is very different than other events. There are tables, of course, but like hard selling happening at the table is just not really what this is about. It's really more about kind of becoming part of this network.
It's relationships.
Yeah. So it's great. So we have tried over this 3-year period to really, hone into that. So like this year, off of feedback from last year, we had our Barbie party last year, and then people were like, what do I do now? And so we went down to like the hotel restaurant, and there were a lot of people wearing Barbie outfits, just kind of getting dinner because no one knew what to do. So this year we're going to bus.
What does Barbie eat?
Yeah, nothing. I don't know. So this year we're gonna bus over groups of women on ghost tours, and so we're trying to really lean into this being like a group. It's like a fun conference. It's really designed for you to. And here's a reality too. I mean, on year one, I walked into this conference and we had 4 men there. And the truth is, if you remove all the men from a conference, it changes the conference. It just changes the type of conversations that the women are willing to have with each other. That's just the facts. And so that's what makes this unlike anything else that I have ever seen or been a part of, is the type of engagement and what goes on in the panels and how they talk to each other and how they help each other afterwards. The CMO of Red Lobster got her job at WiRL, as she called us to tell us afterwards. It is just a different feel and environment that is.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on something that you just said. are you saying that this conference should or should not have men at it?
So I think men can come. And they do come. There was, like I said, there's 25 or so of us last year. And it's great. There are CEOs of restaurant companies who come, they support their women. There are vendor CEOs who come to support. But the truth is, we don't really market it to be male involved. So while you can come and take it in, it's not really like we have, content for men as well. So it ends up then we're just not having a lot of men. And that is okay, because it's not really the point of it to have a lot of male voices there. So there are no men on the board. There are no male speakers. But if you are a man like myself and you want to come take it in, you are more than welcome to, and everyone will embrace you.
But it actually opens your eyes to different perspectives and things that are going on as well. And I think that that's part of it, right? So
no, 1,000%. It's just that we want to make it
show up in Charleston. I'm told all the time.
You have to dress up for the Gatsby Gala. That is the trade-off.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's as much about the space as it is about.
No, I get that, and where your location is. Before we wrap up, I want to just clarify one thing. This is not 2 to 3 days once a year. This is actually an all-year, undertaking and initiative. Mm-hmm. And so you did mention, and I don't want to lose this, that webinars, programming at Evolution, at the different things that are there. So, Satyne, it sounds like that's your full-time post-internship job all year long. So what are the other things that you do to keep this community connected all year long?
And I think, to our earlier conversation, that is another point of differentiation with women in restaurant leadership. Is the event itself in February is the center of gravity for everything that we do, but we keep the party going all year round. I do regular digital features on QSR and FSR, telling the stories of the amazing women in this industry. We have a column in the print version of QSR and FSR every month. I have a bi-weekly podcast. We do webinars every month. These are incredibly engaging. We have a live chat. It's so much fun. We do every other month, we do something called a WiRL Power Hour, which is like a live Q&A. I have a weekly newsletter on WiRL Wine Wednesdays. We have a presence at QSR Evolution in September, which is where the WiRL movement began, and hopefully more to come. But as you can see, I'm probably forgetting something, but we have so many different ways to connect with the broader community.
And I just want to give Satyne credit for all those things, because they would never have happened without her. I was only capable of maybe hosting this conference, but the extension and the vision and how it's evolved, that's because she's here.
And that's why you are Satyne's intern.
Yeah, no,
you're learning. She's teaching you the ropes and the way on this one. So
we don't discriminate here. Like, I just want to say to women out there, you don't have to be a C-suite executive to have your story told. I mean, I am here 365 days a year, all day, every day, telling the stories of women in Kansas who own one restaurant and C-suite operators who have been in the industry for 50 years. So we tell the story of every woman in restaurant leadership.
Well, I think that really may be a great closing here, that WiRL, Women in Restaurant Leadership, its conference, but its programming and its initiative is all year long, and you are telling the story, but you're also contributing to the story, the education, the networking, and it's a great event coming up the 25th to 27th in Charleston at the Marriott. And how does somebody sign up for it?
Yeah, they can go to womenleadrestaurants.com. Got the full agenda on that site, everything you could ever know, and you can also register. But you can also reach out to me or Danny on LinkedIn. We're very, very active on there. Always welcome to do a welcome to WiRL.
Well, great. And Danny, did you want to add anything, or
no? No, as the young people say, no notes.
No notes?
No notes.
You haven't heard that one, Rob?
I haven't heard that one. I've heard 67, though, so I don't know about that. But,
I hate that's for another day.
My daughter does that. It's the worst.
No, there you go. See, I didn't say anything bad. But anyway, listen, thank you very much to Danny Klein, the VP and editorial director of everything, food, retail, and hospitality. I don't think there's anything else out there of QSR and FSR. And Satyne Doner, who's the senior editor of Women in Restaurant Leadership all year long, not just a conference, and with the magazines as well. So thanks for joining me. And quite frankly, thank you for including, well, it isn't me, it's Lauren, but including Lauren on your advisory board and allowing us to help support and participate in WiRL and the other things in your world all year long.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of TechBytes, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.